Good afternoon. As the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire nears its conclusion, the agreement between Israel and Hamas is at a crossroads. Despite the release of Palestinian detainees, delays and obstructions by Israel threaten to derail the next phase of the agreement. Israel insists on control over the timing of the ceasefire's second phase, while Hamas demands full adherence to the terms. Can the US influence Israel to keep its commitment? Will the ceasefire hold for a second phase? And what does the future hold for Gaza? Welcome to In Depth. As part of Gaza ceasefire deal, Hamas has transferred to Israel the bodies of 4 detainees, which completes the release of 33 detainees as stated in the first phase of the agreement. In this context, Axios highlighted that the 42-day truce is due to end on Saturday, but the deal stipulates the ceasefire will continue as long as the parties continue to negotiate on the next phase. According to Israeli officials, the goal now is to reach an agreement on an extension of another 42 days to the ceasefire, during which more Israeli and Palestinian detainees will be released. In his first cabinet meeting, US President Donald Trump said that the transfer of the bodies is the end of the first phase of the deal and the beginning of the second phase. Reports has indicated that Israel is seeking to extend the first stage of the ceasefire agreement and is prepared to resume fighting if there is no progress in crucial talks this week, according to The Guardian. As reported by the newspaper, an extension of phase 1 would involve further Israeli and Palestinian detainee release, but Israeli officials are skeptical of the idea's workability. Steve Witkoff, Trump's Middle East envoy, is returning to the region, aiming for an extension of the ceasefire deal. In phase 2 of the deal, Israel is supposed to completely withdraw its forces from Gaza, in effect ending the war, and talks on future governance of the Strip should begin. Reconstruction is due to begin in phase 3, but the sides remain far apart on Gaza's future. Right, and for more analysis, we're joined from the occupied Jerusalem by Mrs. Ratiba Al-Nacha, member of the Palestinian National Action Committee. Good afternoon to you, Mrs. Ratib, and welcome to Qnews. Let me start by asking you, with Hamas fulfilling their commitment to release the 4 bodies despite Israel's violations and reluctance to return the Palestinian detainees, how does that say about readiness of Israel to negotiate a second phase and commitment to its terms?
Although Hamas deal with this ceasefire deal very seriously and walk till the end in every section of this agreement. On the other side, we see that the Israeli is trying to find ways to destroy this agreement as much as they could. Till now, they didn't start the negotiation on the second phase, and they still asking for extending the first stage for another 42 days, which means that they don't want any commitment, a political commitment or any commitment to end this war against Gaza and the attacks against Gaza. They just want to maybe have one more month in calm and returning as much as possible from the Israeli entities from Gaza Strip, but they didn't want to pay any political price for this ceasefire. It seems that Netanyahu is still very stuck to continue the war on Gaza. He just wants more and more time, a window of time, and he used a lot of excuses for this window of time so he can calm down the Israeli community as well, as they strengthen his coalition in this government till the budget voting pass in the Knesset, and then maybe he will continue this war against Gaza without any commitment to end this war. I think that the Palestinian side will not agree on extending the first stage for another 24 days, which means that we as Palestinians wouldn't accept to have like a humanitarian just agreement instead of having an agreement that have a political commitment, like ending the war and the attacks on Gaza Strip and starting the rebuilding of Gaza again. So still I think that the two parties is very far away from reaching to any agreement in the few days ahead.
Well, Ms. Nacha, U.S. President Donald Trump has emphasized that the decision on the ceasefire's second phase must be Israel's to make. What implications does that stance have for the future of the agreement?
I think that Trump didn't have any clear plans for the future of the ceasefire in Gaza. He wanted to give like a green line for Israel to go as far as it could in achieving its goal, and one of these goals is returning back the Israeli attendees from Gaza. So I don't think that he is putting a real pressure to start a second phase of negotiation or starting a negotiation on the second phase, and he will support extending the first phase for another 42 days. I know that everyone is willing to have a ceasefire and calm Ramadan and pass Ramadan peacefully without any attacking on the civilians in Gaza Strip, but still without any commitment for second phase and commitment of ending these attacks on Gaza and ending the war, I think we are still very far from achieving anything. And I think that the United States is not putting any efforts, real efforts, to achieve a second phase and the commitment of the second phase and putting pressure on Israel for that.
All right. Now we're joined by Mr. Ashraf Al-Ashri, managing editor for Al-Ahram newspaper. Good afternoon to you and welcome here on Qnews in depth. And let me here start by asking you, U.S. President Donald Trump has made it clear that the decision on the ceasefire second phase ultimately rests with Israel. I'm reiterating this question also for you. What impact do you think does this perspective have on the balance of negotiations between Hamas and Israel, leaving it in the hands of Israel?
بكل تأكيد Certainly, such a negotiation is facing great problems. As Israel wanted to have negotiations of the second phase, that making the first phase that ended today to be prolonged infinitely in order to get the most gains of Israel by releasing all the bodies and the detainees without providing any privileges to Hamas. So, to extend this negotiation as an Israeli proposal, and Hamas is saying if Israel wanted to make it that way, so it has to provide the guarantees to Hamas by ceasefire and a complete withdrawal from the Strip along with the Philadelphia corridor. These matters will be decisively appeared by the arrival of Westcott to address the possibility of continued negotiation either in Cairo or in Doha, and whether it's going to be in a second phase or an extended first phase in order to reach agreement of the upcoming period, and this should be subject for consultation and the pressure of the United States against Israel in the upcoming days.
Wait, Mr. Ashri, there are reports that are revealing that Israel is pushing for an extension for the first phase of the agreement. What do you think Israel's objectives are behind that?
As I mentioned, and I wish to reiterate that there is a bid by Netanyahu to evade or for the full execution of the three phases. And if he's going through the second phase, his government will be falling, as he vows to the far right in his government, as Smotrich and Ben Gvir, who withdrew from its government, that if Netanyahu enters the second phase, it will be a withdrawal of the government, and the cabinet will be full, and then the Israeli will go into elections. So Netanyahu providing any guarantees to Hamas, and Hamas would reject this along with the Palestinians. So it will be subject for the guarantees to be announced by the American side to Egypt and Qatar regarding the cessation of the military operations and the withdrawal of Philadelphia, and also regarding the assigning a Palestinian authority for governing the Strip in the following day of the after the war, along with the ceasefire. So the second phase will be difficult and complicated, and won't be having any hope unless the United States is going to pressure the Israeli side.
Now, yes. Now, to you, Ms. Nacha Bak, and the U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff is reportedly scheduled to head to the region next week to boost second phase negotiations. Now, how significant is the role of the U.S. in pushing Israel towards compliance with the agreements? And I guess that, respectively, was also Mr. Ashri's statements.
I think that Steve Witkoff coming to supervise the negotiation path by himself, because he didn't trust Israel and the reporting from Israel 100%, and he think that there's a lot of missing information, and he can maybe find another way of thinking and creative thinking, not sticking to the traditional way of thinking about solving the problem in Gaza. This doesn't mean that America is not supporting the Israeli choices at all, and we know that the United States of America, it's completely qualified for Israel and its goal, and there's no any supporting for the Palestinian choices, but they want to achieve the Israeli goals, maybe in a new ways, not the ways that Netanyahu is suggested. And this is why he is coming to supervise on these negotiations. And not for putting any pressure on Israel. I know that one of the goals of this war from the Israeli aspect is to release all the Israeli prisoners from Gaza Strip. So to achieve this goal, something must be done. And I think that the Israeli government is not really putting any efforts to return them back. And this is very important for the United States of America to achieve. And another way, they want to make maybe a regional deal inside this deal. And this regional deals means that the interest of the United States in the region may be one of the cards that they will play in this negotiation, and putting pressure not on Israel, but maybe on other countries on the region, like Egypt and Qatar, who is putting efforts to achieve like a ceasefire as soon as possible in Gaza Strip, because this means the sustainability of the region, and they want to achieve this goal of sustainability and to keep the rights of the Palestinian and to have their rights in independence state as well. So I think that the American role...
Ms. Nacha, let me get it correctly. You're saying here that the U.S. wants to consider the rights of the Palestinians?
No, I'm not saying that. No, at all. It's very far from happening that the U.S. will consider the Palestinian rights, but I think that this balance in these occasions must be like to keep everyone interest in the area. And we know that the Arab states, especially Egypt, supporting
Indeed.
the Palestinian. Yes, the Palestinian rights of getting their independence state. In the other hand, I think that the United States have a lot of interest in the Middle East, and Egypt is one of the strong player in the Middle East, and they can't ignore the will of Egypt if they want to have stability in the Middle East, including in the Arab and the whole Arab world as well. So this is what this is the American role, is to make sure that the Israeli negotiation is not going to destroy all the interest of the United States in the Middle East for achieving Netanyahu's goal, and to achieve to agreement that can keep the situation in the Middle East as much as possible as it is. Let's say as it is.
As is, right. Mr. Al-Ashri, now considering we followed the release of some Palestinians in the past few hours, but considering the previous delays of the release of Palestinian detainees, Israel's violations to the ceasefire are rising. What is your assessment of the situation?
Absolutely, the delay of releasing more than 600 of the Palestinian prisoners was a result of maneuvering by Netanyahu to pressuring Hamas movement under the pretext that the displays or the shows orchestrated by Hamas upon the release of the Israelis will trigger the outrage within Israel. So he wanted to pressure Hamas to have more gains, but the Egyptian side, which is the pivotal in part, is in the process, had interfered and succeeded in reaching an agreement between Hamas and Israel, and they've agreed upon to release the 4 Israeli bodies, along with the release of 620 Palestinian prisoners, as Egypt wished to execute the agreement. So Egypt had a pivotal and a great role in this process and delivering the aid along with the matters related to the relief materials within Gaza Strip. This effort will continue. Egypt will continue to play its role in the future, but the concern is up to the Netanyahu that is creating more drills, creating more pretexts in order to make sure the exiting of Gaza or the handing over or demilitarize the movement, and everyone will be shocked of great obstacles, as Netanyahu wishes to do so in a bid to maintain his government and to keep it out of the fold. So we fear that the negotiations in the future will increase more radicalism and into the Israeli cabinet, and it is the much concern about it is that the timeline will come to an end without achieving anything useful.
Now, Ms. Nacha, Hamas has expressed its readiness to enter this second phase of talks, but has insisted on that Israel stick to the agreed terms of the ceasefire agreement. What hurdles do you foresee in reaching a final agreement?
In this moment, it's very far. Maybe we can achieve extension for phase 1 if the United States and Egypt give enough commitment for Hamas that Israel will commit for the second phase and end the war. Because as I said before, everyone wants a calm Ramadan to pass, and one of the goals of the Palestinian and Hamas is to release all the Palestinian prisoners from the Israeli jails. So I think it's on the goal, ongoing, but still without having any commitment to end the attacks on Gaza and to rebuild Gaza, it will be very, very hard to achieve any agreement, because I think that the Israeli prisoners in Gaza is the strongest paper that can Hamas play on it to put pressure on Israel to stop its attack on Gaza Strip. And I think that it's a Palestinian will to have our independent state and to end these attacks on Gaza, and not just permanently, but once and forever.
Mm-hmm. So actually, with both sides holding strong positions and the US calling for progress, what diplomatic measures could help break any deadlock, and what would encourage both Israel and Hamas to fulfill the terms of the second phase or go into the second phase of the ceasefire?
This matter that would require a commitment of both sides. The context of the agreement being signed in Doha on the 27th of November last year, that there is an actual commitment of having the three phases to be succeeded, and the phases of the truce, and there are several steps through which Netanyahu is creating pretexts and using actually the privilege of the American guarantees and achieving more results in favor of Israel without having any commitment of the executing the Arab right, either in an independent Palestinian state, or even withdraw from the southern of Lebanon or the southern of Syria, and have a cessation of hostilities. against the Arab countries that have problems with Israel. And therefore, Trump's vow and what his proposals of displacing the Palestinians vis-a-vis the Arab rejection and what the Israelis doing, or rather Trump, due to the pressure practiced by the Jewish lobby, and otherwise won't be having a peaceful settlement without having any American pressure in pursuit of getting the Palestinian rights and a full withdrawal from all the occupied territories. If Trump wishes to get the Nobel Prize, he has to adjust his position.
This is clear, Mr. Ashri, but the more important than the Nobel Prize is stability to the region. That was Mr. Ashraf al-Ashri, managing editor for Al-Ahram newspaper, and Ms. Ratiba El-Netcha, member of the Palestinian National Action Committee. We thank you so much both for your valuable insights, and I guess that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Many thanks for watching, and join us and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.